Hello, we're live. Okay, so I'm just checking we're live on Facebook too. As soon as that starts, we can get going. Right, we're live. We're live on YouTube. We're live on Facebook. Finally. So I think I've got customer services. And by customer services, I mean secret services. That's their new tagline for me. I was calling them CIA by default. Up until recently, and then in a state of hysteria, I changed it to customer services. Sorry, I'm just getting my bearings. I'll get things together in a second. So I was making a live stream on Facebook last night. Not sure why I'm missing it on YouTube right this second. And I'm picking up where I left off there. Essentially, the reason I was making the live stream, and this is what I was trying to get across, is because my mental health is manageable. I know what to do. It still displays itself in my approach to life and the world, but I've got it in check, and I always do my best, and that's the best I can do. But unfortunately, on top of that, I've got my physical health that's now a problem, and there lies the problem, because at the moment I'm very, very depressed in my life as a result of everything, mostly as a result of the health problems I'm experiencing. And as a result, I'm really, really depressed, and ultimately I'd be in bed right now on a day-to-day basis with depression. And the only thing that gets me up and active each day is physical pain. And well, yesterday, it really did get taken up a notch. It was as if I came back and I was exhausted, and my mental health wanted to do its best to get me at a time when I was down and weak. And it gave pretty much everything to really disturbing me. What we're talking about is elements of psychosis, and like really, really pressured psychosis. It's like the difference between someone offering you a fruit and then someone trying to make you eat that fruit and shoving it into your mouth and trying to make your jaw go up and down so you can eat it. Well, that was the experience yesterday. I do my best to just decline at all opportunities, and yesterday it attempted to open my mouth, put the fruit in, and start moving my jaw up and down. And in that sense, it got taken up a notch. Because with the depression, it's only the physical pain that moves me. And it was yesterday that the physical pain was moving me. And then I realized at a point, oh, hang on, I'm actually seriously ill here. I'm struggling beyond my limits. I'm in sheer terror. There's an external force right now that's sedating that and wanting me to function like I'm normal. And that was the realization I had, and what led to me beginning the live stream. And essentially within that place of my mental health, trying to force me to eat this, I had the choice. I could eat it, or I could just enjoy it and eat the fruit. And in terms of the psychosis, that's exactly what took place, because I was having the hardest psychosis really being forced on me. It was a case of, let me just try and recap and see if I can remember it. I can't remember in relation to what, but my psychosis, when it forces itself upon me, forces ideas upon me, my life is normally like preset to deal with it now. So in other words, if it normally harbors around a few subjects, and they consist of fighting and sex, and you could argue they're the same thing on a certain level from a certain perspective. And it was trying to force ideas of fighting on me. I wish I could remember what the subject was, but essentially it was like, no, I don't want to fight. I don't believe what you're saying. Go away. Come again, and I say no, not going to believe it. Go away. I push it away, and it kept coming, and I was really scared because I was really weak. Didn't have the energy, and I knew if it took me. So in other words, if I fell into, or if I bit more accurately on what it was trying to sell me as truth, given my state, given the weakness I was, the place I was in, I wouldn't have had a chance in hell on any level. And I could have got swept away for weeks. And that's happened before. With this narrative being going round and round in my head about me winning and losing and winning and losing. And it does its best to make it sound real, make it as believable as possible, but it just wasn't truth for me, and I didn't need to give it energy, but it then shoved it in my mouth. And in this place, it was like, it's a bit of a killer without remembering the subject in any way, because it loses a lot of the story. But in that place, there were genuine fears. Like, as soon as he shoved it in my mouth, it was like it becomes real. And you have to start questioning the story. You have to start asking yourself, well, I don't really want to be tasting anything right now. I'm fighting for my life in terms of my health. This isn't good. And you try and resist your jaw moving, so your mental health moving your jaw up and down, making you respond to what it's feeding you. I was resisting, and then it changed the dynamics of the story to try and make me, buy and follow it a different way. And it offered me the story that, well, I've won. It really kills me that I can't remember it, but took a second, and I just realised that, wait, hang on a second. I just that much. Whether this story is maybe true, I don't really have a choice about that. If I just accept that I've won, the story's over with. There's nothing to fear. All those emotions that I was essentially trying to fight, the anxieties surrounding the story, would stop. So I said, all right, I've won. I've won. Whatever battle I was fighting, whatever fear was being force-fed towards me, is no longer. And I accepted, in terms of the psychosis, I've won. There's nothing more. There's no more to fight. And that's what I said. I've chosen a road, but this might have to turn into a part 3, and I might have to listen to the part 1 again, just to recap myself and refresh myself on the storyline, because the title is I chose a road, and I chose a road when I was being force-fed bullshit. It made sense to, not because I wanted to, not because I believed it, not because I wanted bullshit shoved down my throat, because it would make it finish a lot quicker. And I said, right, I enjoy the bullshit this way. And it stopped. The psychosis stopped. So what I'm going to do now is replay the first one, see if any flashbacks come to me as to what I was thinking at the time, as to why winning was good, but essentially it's more than a life buy, because, and this is it's more than that, where I find myself, oh yeah, flashbacks are coming. So I'm going to talk you through on the live stream. And essentially I realized I was in a really bad place last night. Really bad place. I caught myself, and it was like where I am in terms of my physical health. It's like the extremes of shock, and whatever it is that's malicious towards me is stopping me from being real with myself, being real with my body, acknowledging that shock so I can deal with it. And that's why I tried to make the live stream last night, because I realized if I can talk my way through it, it's a way to center myself, but it didn't come to fruition thanks to customer services turning off my iPhone. And I still had 10% battery left on a brand new battery. So I went for a walk, and it was the most unpleasant walk, and I'm starting to get a memory about what the subject matter was last night that was bugging me, and I'm a bit shocked. It's that extreme. I don't know if if I'm about to get this all out or what, but we'll give it a go. And essentially, I've said it before, I believe I'm in a coma. And the truth is that within that coma, I don't know when it was that I entered this place. I'm 36 now, and I've got it down to the very, very absolute latest was when I was 24. But the likelihood is, I keep taking it back as I recount my life, and it's like, actually, no, it's not when I was 24. I can take it back to when I was maybe 22. And I was like, well, no, it's not when I was 22. I can actually take it back to when I was 19. And then it's like, it's looking like 16. And now it's looking like when I was 4, I entered this state. And really, what it represented is this. And I'm going to do my best to get it out. And I'm going to try and slow down, and I'm going to smoke as much as I can, because I'm just really glad that I've remembered, because I can actually deal with some of my elements of shock in my system by speaking about this. And it might be an interesting listen if I get any viewers for this. But what I started to realize was, and I'm going to look like a mess because of the physical pain. I'm going to be rolling about in this chair trying to find comfort, but I'll get it out. Right, was like, and this is where I am right now in the present moment, is a case of the pain is too much. I've been here once before. And the pain got too much, and I couldn't take the pressure anymore. And in that place, all of a sudden, I found a moment of that. And that was where I was yesterday. But I had this thing that was suppressing me from truly feeling it on a physiological level. And as a result, it was like, it was keeping me at that edge point of essentially an emotional death. It's like, imagine the pressure and terror that you're in. It's been so great because because you've just been able to tune into your body enough to realize that that emotion, that physical pain that you tried to ignore all those years ago, and you've just been working through life like a soldier and pushing through, and your life is, this isn't the way it happened for me, but I'm giving analogies so you might be able to relate. And after 10, 15 years, you get a bit of rest in your life, a bit of space, and you take a break and you go for a walk in nature in years, and you're at a retreat and you're doing yoga or you're eating good foods, and you're out with yourself one day, and because of all that good work you've done over that time that you've been at the retreat, you're starting to get in tune with your body again. Unfortunately, 15 years ago, it was serious and you needed to have intervention and medical assistance then. and you managed to soldier through for 15 years like a warrior. Unfortunately, a week, 2 weeks, 2 months, possibly even a year in a retreat isn't going to bring you back round. And what happens is you go for a walk one night and you're getting in touch with your body again, and you're becoming alive again. But you've always been aware of the problem in the background, the physical pain that you've been ignoring, because whilst you've been working, you've been doing your best with however you can with your physical body. So you're at the retreat and you get in touch with yourself more and more, and you're witnessing your body for the first time in probably 15 years on a true level. And you realize the severity of where you're at. And the severity of where you're at is that your physical body be alive. Your physical body is preventing you by entering some sort of place beyond the pain threshold barrier where you would normally pass out. You've managed to go beyond it. And you witness that barrier from the other side. And that's the point. That barrier is when we should just pass out and collapse, so the body doesn't take on more pain and send us off in a different direction for 15 years. And you realize you haven't got a shot really at getting yourself back. You don't know what to do. And the sheer terror, you realize that you're not getting the oxygen into your body. Your body's lacking oxygen. You're not breathing correctly. And if you're not breathing correctly, how are you going to manage the panic and stress and shock your body is in? So in other words, if you imagine you're in shock and you've been there for a long time, it starts to affect your ability to breathe. The sheer terror. And you've gone off and you've been in that place for 15 years and added to it and added to it. And now you're seeing it. The terror is untold. I've tried my best. I haven't been off from the 10, 15 years. I've done my best with the resources I've had over the past 2 years and more, in the case of 2 years where I've not been in control of it. For the first 6 months, I was in control of it. For the last 2 years, I've not. But that's been my focus. Nothing else in this world has been my focus other than getting myself back. And I don't know what to do because, and as I said, I've tried within the means of my resources to do everything to get myself back, and I haven't been able. I've got customer services interrogating me and terrorizing me. I've been able to record the live stream since last night. As I said, a brand new battery drops out at 10%. Shouldn't happen. I've taken about 4, 5, 6 attempts to get streaming software either to Facebook or YouTube set up. These aren't problems that should be happening, not when someone knows technology. But they're happening, and that's been added on top. So obviously, I use live streams to help me, and I've got customer services stopping that. It looks like to me they're trying to hurt me. It doesn't look like it feels. The truth feels like customer services are trying to kill me because it physically fucking hurts. Not only does it physically fucking hurt, it causes sheer terror as a natural reaction of the human body. not because of anything else. In that state, unless they've been taught how to deal with it, they're going to be in sheer fucking. They're going to kill themselves. When euthanasia is illegal, and that applies to corporations. Euthanasia. And that's the situation I find myself in. And in that place, I wasn't able to focus on my body as much as my body was saying, I'm in agony, do something. I'm in agony, do something. I was like, I can't. I'm in terror. When you're in terror, you can't focus on a thing. I couldn't be indoors as much as the physical couldn't get up, but I stumbled outside and I went for a walk. And I said, right, as it's coming back, it's really hard to acknowledge where I'm at. And I was walking, I was like, I know where I'm at. My life has just stopped. I'm just going to walk and walk and walk because the NHS keep playing games with me on a level like the customer services. The NHS, for all intents and purposes, are trying to kill me. They have led to me this very moment. And I don't know what's keeping me alive, trying to keep me calm on a daily basis. It's like I'm entering hysteria more and more, which the NHS taught me how to do as a means of a slow, gradual death. So I've got the NHS and customer services doing this to me. Don't care if anybody believes it's what's happening. Isn't high enough a limit for the pain. And you're like, right, in a heart attack, something should fail now within me. That's the severity now. And in that place, the only thing that could keep me focused was, right, well, this world has gone to shit. It's been proven to me that this world has gone to shit so many times. And I start looking at, how do I get myself out of the coma? I start recounting my life, and that's the only thing that I'm able to raise and summon the energy out of sense to apply focus to get myself safe. You don't want to start giving it to anything and you don't have energy because it's above the sky, the amount of energy you need to summon to get you safe. And as I'm walking, someone makes a comment about Jesus. I'm half thinking, is that customer services trying to embed this into my head? Because this has been another psychosis. It's been pressured on me over the past admission to hospital, and my last admission to hospital was the last physical interaction I had with customer services. And since then, it's been like, oh, you're Jesus, Gabriel. You're Jesus. I'm like, no, I'm not Jesus. You're Jesus. This is why you're Jesus. And I'm like, that doesn't make sense. Go away. You're Jesus. I'm like, for fuck's sake, for Jesus' sake, for God's sake, fuck off. That's the narrative. And ironically, I was a state last night, and if ever I looked like Jesus, it was last night. And someone made a comment, they were taking the piss like they would do a homeless person because I was in such a state. Oh, it's Jesus. It's Jesus. Someone needs to tell them Jesus died a couple thousand years ago. I was born in 1985. They just need to do the math. But anyway, that's relative to the story, because as I'm walking, Not sure is the microphone working? Let me just double check. That would be a killer.
I was resisting.
Yep, the microphone's working. Thank you, customer service, for allowing at least that. So I start looking at my life, and the thinking was so quick, it was so haphazard, it was half my psychosis running it, it was half me trying to stay focused, so it's not clear, but I know if I start recounting it, there's clarity within, because I know the situation is like, it's clear within my mind. So really and truly, what I'm looking at is the age of 4, around the age of 4. There's a picture of my uncle when my uncle came round to help my dad build the extension on the house. The home that I'm talking about is essentially my sister's home. We moved when I was about 2. My sister was born when I was 2.5, so it was pretty much looked at as her home. And he came round to help my dad build the extension after, when I was 4. It was around that time. I could have been 3. I don't think I would have been older than 4. And there's a picture of my uncle holding me, and the foundations were outside. That's as far as they'd got with the property at the time, with the extension, with the work. And my uncle's stepping across the foundations. I mean, he's a builder, all builders do that, but he's got me in like a bear grip in his arms. And if ever there was a Kodak moment, it was that, because apparently thereafter, holding me in his arms, he missed the step. He fell down on the other side, and my face hit the other side of the edge of the foundations, and I busted up my mouth. And then you start to look at spirituality, and we're talking about the Greeks and the practices they had. And apparently the Spartans, taking on the warriors element of being Greek, and my dad's side of the family are the warriors. My mum's side are the cooks, the chefs, the softer element to life. But my dad's family definitely hold that warrior spirit. And the Spartans, what they were meant to have done was, any child that looks weak, and I'm a bit of a pussy, I know that to myself. There's a story where they say they just chuck it over a ledge. And it was a bit like that. But if you read a little bit more into such a barbaric practice of just chucking a child to its death because they're not strong enough. You take into account the Greeks were all about love. They had 24 words for love. They understood love. They had philosophy. They had a peace, except for the few wars they had within themselves. They had, it was peaceful life, unless you piss someone off. So you start asking yourself spiritual questions, and what does that involve? And then it sort of began to click for me. Looking at that as a spiritual practice, and the Japanese have something similar to it, where the initiates in the Zen practice will go up to the edge of a mountain, and they'll just basically hang off like on the edge. And in the back of my mind, there was something that said, I bet they jump and something magical happens. Carlos Castaneda, the same thing. Don Juan was meant to have spun Carlos around, round and round and round and round. like my life is doing to me, and then he flung him off a ledge. It's always a ledge. And apparently Carlos exploded into a million pieces, he says in his book. And they all sound very similar stories, and when you get similar stories within spirituality, it's normally something to not poo-poo, something to hold as open as a possibility. There might be something more. And well, my uncle pretty much chucked me off the ledge. The only thing is he was holding on behind me, adding extra weight to the final impact. And then it started to make sense again. And I realized where the beef is in terms of humanity right now. So it's really in depth, this experience. But essentially, there's different philosophies in the world. You have the Red Indians, who believe in spirit as the all-encompassing force. And you have, I can only presume, I don't know, but given the way I understand consciousness to work in terms of geoconsciousness, politics, polarizations, it's just normally like one side of the planet polarized against the other side of the planet. You question yourself, right, well, the Red Indians, are they polarized against the Indians? Are they polarized against the Middle Easterns? Are they polarized against the Chinese? Who knows? But that's the crux of humanity's problem. The Red Indians believe spirit is the all-encompassing force, and then someone on the other side of the planet believes something else is the all-encompassing force. And I'm going to get this out because it's my service to humanity, as well as standing any chance of getting myself in health today. But with that concept in mind, and with the spiritual teachings that I've been told that when we come in before we're spirit, we essentially, how can I put it? We essentially take time. The 7 years we have in the spirit world after we die, for most people, there are exceptions, but I understand that most people have 7 in the spirit world, and within those 7 years, essentially contracts are made for the coming life. In other words, who are you going to support? How many people are you going to help? How many people are you going to do this? What are you going to do in that life? Who are you going to fall in love with? And to my understanding, those practices that I've just talked about, being chucked off the ledge, are almost like a polarization to that, in the sense that, don't forget, we've come from Atlantis, we've come from ancient Egypt and all the wisdom, the Book of the Dead, the Tibetan Book of the Living and Dying. People understand the process of death. And within that understanding, and with the memory of our collective past, what we can do is rewrite what Spirit wrote. Because who knows? Because who knows? Could be why not? But it could be also a case of, well, Spirit looks at the world this way, and when it comes in, we always get the same problems. Because it doesn't remember the past. It's infinite. But when infinite consciousness takes into account all of time and chooses a contract within those 7 years and incarnates, it's not necessarily appropriate and applicable to the present world. And if you've taken the time to understand death as different cultures, the Egyptians, the the Tibetans, and we talked about 3 practices before. So we're talking about the ancient Greeks, the Japanese with the Zen, and the wacky Indians, at least, where Don Juan was meant to have been a chief of. You begin to see that we've sort of mastered death, and we as a collective don't need to suffer anymore. And if spirit keeps coming in with the same bullshit because it doesn't remember the past, then we just keep rewriting spirit because we can. And what we do for the cultures that take part within that is they enter someone into a near-death experience, a coma, a dream state. And it might be a case of the body has to be at the point of death on some level and know it. So in other words, being chucked over a ledge, you will experience the weightlessness and you see your demise. The fear of death is undeniable in that moment, unless you're a child and you have pure innocence, or the education of someone like Carlos Castaneda, a Zen student, or someone that studied the Tibetan books or the Egyptian books, and that's not happening anymore. So you take it to the level of a child. As innocence, not to have that fear of death, but to know something is wrong and to be real and alive. And in that place, it really highlights that might be the crux of humanity's problem, the differing views of how to live in terms of spirit. Do we just listen to spirit and get on with things, or do we take control as a human race and empower ourselves, empower peace, empower love, and not give ourselves problem if spirit keeps giving us problems with the contracts it's made? And entering this near-death experience, coma, dream state, whatever you want to call it, we'll just call it coma going forward. That's what I believe I'm in. Well, that's actually just like I reference Secret Services. It's customer services, I just reference it as coma. It could be any of them or more. And what we do, we enter the person into a near-death experience and give them a chance to rewrite spirit, having lived 4 years of life, to see if anything's different. Give them a second chance. Make sure that spirit is correct. And then I started to see, basically, and spirit isn't everything. Spirit is only goes so far. Time supersedes spirit. I don't know if it will come out as to why, but I'll continue talking and see if it does. And with that, I started to question, well, is this world real? I can account reason for all the weird and wacky stuff that happens into my life that this world says shouldn't take place and shouldn't be allowed and shouldn't be feasible, but it is. In other words, I'm living a spiritual life now. This world is no longer what this world teaches you as real, is secondary to my experience of spirituality in terms of life. And in that place, I can't deny for myself that I don't know 100% if this is real or not. And I tried to explore, well, did I die then? Am I in a coma? Is it real? And what we're talking about when I say I'm living a spiritual life is, I know for a fact something to the extent of aliens really having a big play in the outcomes of individual lives on planet Earth. Happening. And or the consciousness that we had in Atlantis still being present on the planet, but hidden. That's certainty for me. There's no doubt there. That is the level we're talking about. And if we're talking about that, then we're talking about levitation, we're talking about teleportation, we're talking about telekinesis, we're talking about transmutation. So I'll let your minds explore the possibilities of everything that can mean, to see just a glimpse of what that might mean for an individual that's saying to you with certainty that their life is spiritual. What are some of the events that could have happened in my life to make me know 100% that that's taking place? But that's where I find myself, and this reality seems very, very questionable, because everything we're taught tells you, you knock on wood, it makes a sound. If you have the consciousness of Atlantis, it might not, or it might sound like whatever you want it to sound. And if you've been brought up living this world, work, 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 money, 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 sex, 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 that's what's on the advertising boards, that's what's on TV, that's what's everywhere you look, that's what's real. You begin to see with the spiritual life, all of that realness, it reveals itself in a short space of time, just goes, it's worthless. This life is worthless in terms of any grounding to it being real or a dream. So I started looking over and recounting, and I don't know how far I'm going to go into detail on this, otherwise it's going to be like a 3-4 hour live stream. But I began to see that I couldn't know, first of all, if this was real, because spirituality is true. We've come from Atlantis and we're playing games that, the pyramids were built by hand, and we suppress spirituality because it doesn't exist, and Carlos Castaneda's works are all novel books, and the Zen practice is just meditation, The consciousness that spawned from ancient Egypt, that surprisingly came out overnight, there was reason why people were able to do that. But we just don't know. Spirituality is real. The world suppresses it. And that's fact. This world could be real. But if it's real, it's spiritual first. And if it's spiritual first, and what we're talking about is me being in a coma, a dream state, or a near-death experience, then spirituality exists anyway in another dimension, wherever I came from. Because the truth is, this is where I'll go with that. So, age of 4, I had that experience. My first memory is around the age of 4. I was asleep on a sofa, and we had some guests come round. It was a Greek lady, and she had 4 sons. That's my first memory. And I was shy. I didn't want to get up, so I pretended I was asleep. And they came and they sat in front of me on the sofa. I think they must have known I was awake, just being shy. So they were all sitting in front of me. But ultimately, those 4 boys became good friends of mine from the perspective of a child. Always enjoyed their company, really good people. Good people. They were brought up well, despite coming from a single parent mother in another country. She was Greek first before she was anything else. But they were brought up well. They were good people. And what I always remember about them is they taught me about time. We were in a car one day, and I've told you I'm autistic. And they asked me, "Oh, Andreas, what's the time?" I said, "I don't know." He said, "Well, here's a watch." I can't remember how it happened. It was something like that. "What's the time?" They taught me how to tell the time. They said, "What's the time now?" I said, "It's 3:39." They said, "Well done, well done." I don't know if they changed it or whatever. Asked me a few minutes later. And I said, "What's the time?" It's 4:29. They said, "No, it's not 4:29." I said, "But it says 4:29." They said, "No, you just say 4:30." It confused me. I said, "Well, why not? Well, why'd you do that?" And I didn't understand it. And they tried to tell me about 1/2 past and 1/4 to and all of these things. And I was like, "What? Why don't you just say the time?" As I've grown up, as I've become a part of the world that's presented to us, sex, work, and rock and roll, time is basically fundamental with work. I'm autistic. I aim to be at work 15 minutes every time before work, unless the work starts taking the piss, and then I aim to be there on time every time. I'm autistic to that degree about time. And that's where all of this really begins to ask further questions, because this reality that I've lived is teaching me about time. And in terms of being in a coma, if I entered this coma when I was, say, 18, I would have had a perception of the world, an understanding on some level of the world. And when I go back to my real body, that world would have built this dream. But as a child, when you enter a coma, you don't really have an understanding of the world. You have an understanding of energy. Oh, this is my mum. I feel like this towards her. Oh, this is my dad. I feel like this towards him. I like it when he's happy. I don't like it when he shouts at me. Oh, this is my sister. This is my friend. And it's just very, very primordial. And this world has been built on primordial energy. So really, anything is possible. What is likely is that if it was that point when my uncle stepped across and I entered into a coma state, then chances are my uncle is some sort of guide within this process for me. And then you begin to see, well, if I've entered into this state when I was in a primordial place, really and truly, when I wake up in my body at the age of 4, as long as those same energies are present in my life, oh, dad happy, dad angry, mum happy and angry, my sister, my friends, those energies, those feelings, that's all that reality is. And really and truly, that could look like anything else. when I go back to my real body. I could wake up in the same place at 4, in a hospital at the age of 4 with my smashed jaw, and this story could have had truth within it to take me back to it. Or I could wake up and the world is 2,000 years ago when Jesus was about. There's no reason why not. There's no reason why I couldn't wake up in the future. There's no reason why I couldn't wake up at any possible time, any possible place, any possible dimension, just with those primordial energies present. And in relationship to that, I made a live stream about finding my rock the other day, and it was my uncle again, who was within this story. And essentially, I won't go into detail about that story, but finding my rock, it's all about finding something within this world that you can hold to as strength. You only find it in the most challenging of times, when you're at your most despair, or you just don't care, and it happens by chance. And that was the fable of the story, so to speak. But with myself, there's my other uncle is the one who told me the story, and my other uncle has been a guide to me within this life. And I know he's told me that story for a reason. And in the back of my mind, every so often, it asked the question, well, what's my rock? What did Vlad mean by finding my rock? What did he mean? Was it on a physical level or a spiritual, blah, blah, blah? And I've asked myself over and over and over and over, and I just don't know. But one of the possibilities is that my other uncle, who dropped me over the ledge, who came round, and I found the rock, a physical rock that I made the live stream about. Is it him? Because I've never looked at him as someone I could rely on. He always had his life. He has a disabled son, and his energy isn't quite as warriorship as the rest of the family. So he's always been at a distance. That's the only thing. But I've always respected him. He's a very grounded person, very wise person. And maybe it was to realize that he's my rock. And this is when it really gets a bit woo-woo, and you're going to have to do your best to keep up. Because this is just my thinking process. I haven't settled on any of this. All I've done is allowed my mind to know that something isn't right, to question, to hold spirituality as a truth, to hold it open, all possibilities, and be honest how I relate to them. And when the time is right, I allow stories like this to happen, even though it's on Jesus. And as I said, for the longest time, customer services in the background have been trying to tell me I'm Jesus, and I've just been telling them to fuck off. For me, I've been told categorically, you were the younger brother of Jesus. I've been told that by a respected teacher in this life. So why am I going to believe I'm Jesus? It doesn't make sense. But I don't deny the fact that for the past year and 4 months, I've had my mental health, probably through the energy of that experience with customer services, telling me I'm Jesus, on and off. And they really come at me when I'm weak to try and get that message home. So I've got to really look at it with trepidation, and I don't believe it. I believe it's a malicious entity that's trying to make me believe that. But then last night, I allowed my mind in this place it felt like the right time to explore it. I don't know anything about being Jesus. I'm not Jesus here. This body, this consciousness isn't Jesus. And then I started to think, well, you'll find your rock. Could it be, pardon me, that process that my uncle, that I said is a possibility, that Carlos Castaneda went through, that probably goes on a lot more in this world than meets the eye. Essentially, you're taking somebody to the point of death that they should die. And by means of spirituality, you're allowing them a chance to either enter a dream state or enter a dream state within reality. But my uncle did that to me when I was a child. What if, as being told that I'm the younger brother of Jesus, it was actually Jesus 2,000 years ago as a spiritual master doing that to me? And he's created this insanity to teach me, for me to rewrite my spiritual contracts. And again, with a rock, Jesus was meant to have been crucified, but Jesus was also meant to be immortal. He was meant to be a spiritual being able to perform miracles. And he didn't die after 3 days. So they stabbed him in the side with a spear and apparently lost consciousness. But just losing consciousness doesn't mean you're dead. It means your body's resting, recuperating. And he was meant to have been placed in a tomb with a massive rock in front of it. Now, if that rock sealed the air to the tomb, Jesus could very well still be alive in a comatose state. And I've just said that first time using those words, and it could be that I'm Jesus in a different world, because I can't see myself as Jesus, because I see myself as this body, and I see Jesus as a totally different body. And essentially, this body has grown up in this world, and this world has made me. I am a sum total of this world. So if I can be Jesus, anybody can be Jesus. We're all the same. We're the sum total of our bodies in this world, and no more and no less. But if you start to see that you're in a coma or a dream state, then any man, woman, or child can be Jesus. And it's just a possibility. So it was the first time I said, well, I might be. But then I'm not special. It's not like I'm Jesus and you're not. No, you're a part of me, and we're all Jesus. Do you see it? So there's no ego to be had about it. There's nothing to dwell there. Oh, okay, wicked. Oh, okay, not. I didn't like his hair. I didn't like his beard. I didn't like this about. There's no thought there. It's just a case of this world doesn't exist. Anything is possible. And we're talking about a rock. What I started to realize is that I can't remember. Basically, I divided time. I divided spirit. Well, I said I did. My mind, my life did it. I just witnessed it. I don't know how much energy and where I'm going to get with this, but there was lots more. I don't know how much I'm going to get to now. So I really tried to explore. Well, I started to ask myself questions. Would I want this world? If I had a choice, if infinite possibilities there and we could just choose, well, do I go back to when I was 4, pick up from 1989, the fall of the Berlin Wall, and go from there? Or do I rewind 2,000 years ago, and would I prefer to go back then to enter into the future? And for me, the future is all about pure bliss, the Aquarian age. That's where we're at. We've gone through the shit time, and we're about to, whatever which way, throw ourselves up into the Aquarian age. Physically, like throw ourselves up. That's how it feels like. We've just got all of this shit and sickness within us, and we come out of ourselves into the Aquarian age sort of thing. And it's pure bliss. So it's a bit like that. And it's to ask myself questions. Well, I started asking myself questions. Well, if we're about to enter into pure bliss, whether it's now, whether it's 2,000 years ago with JC, whether it's me or somebody else, whether I'm his younger brother. But if it's JC, then pure bliss is on the cards. And it became a recurring theme, pure bliss. And it's what I know inside of me. Anyway, pure bliss is on the cards. If we go back 2,000 years ago, essentially we just instantly wipe out 2,000 years of our worst karma. The world wars, all of that suffering and everything else. Or do we enter pure bliss with the awareness of the past 2,000 years as a collective? One, to give us adulthood within pure bliss and give us a totally different reality, because pure bliss is forever. There's no going back on that. Do we limit ourselves to the world that we had 2,000 years ago, or do we take all of this madness and go into pure bliss with this madness in our past? It creates a lot more possibilities for infinity that way. It's like, imagine you're, how can I put it? It's like going into the unknown. No, it's like going into the known. You know it's going to be pure bliss. You know it's going to be this. You know it's going to be that. You know it's going to be the other. Do you keep it simple and say, right, well, let's rewind the past 2,000 years, get rid of all of that suffering? Or do we look at it in the place of pure bliss? Coming from a place of pure suffering begins to unravel itself. The polarizations unravel, because within the place of knowing within ourselves, we're grounded within pure bliss forever. There's nothing to fear. And we can look at this past 2,000 years and we can start to see reasons why we did things to ourselves, why we've dropped nuclear bombs, why we've gone through so many wars, why we've gone through so many famines, atrocities, and everything else. It makes the infinite pure bliss that little bit more exciting. Knowing where we've come from, it makes it that much better. Also, 2,000 years ago, the world was a lot simpler. The world is absolutely fucking mad. We've got technology, we've got everything else. If we're going to become pure consciousness, like enlightened in an instant, it'd be nice to take some toys with us, wouldn't it? To play with for the rest of infinity. Set ourselves off in infinite directions. Oh, we've got the internet. What can we do with that now? We don't need it, but we can still use it. It's still there. What can we do with it? We've got these buildings. Oh, we're never going to build buildings like that, but they're there. How do we take care of them? What do we do with them? We're going to give ourselves questions with a mess, with no fear or anything else going forward. So I started asking myself all of these questions. I didn't know if I'd prefer the simplicity. I don't know if I'd prefer toys. I don't know if I'd prefer the wisdom of going through the suffering that makes us adults going into pure bliss. Whereas 2,000 years ago, we lived very contained lives, small communities, limited understanding of the rest of the world. And I really didn't know. I think that was the long and short of it. But it got to the point, let me just remember. What it is a case of, if we're about to enter pure bliss, and I have this unwritten thing in my past that I may or may not go back to. The truth is, if I go back 2,000 years ago, it's pure bliss. Right now, we're at the point in my life when I'm about to die because I'm in sheer terror. I know I should be having a heart attack, brain seizure, brain hemorrhage right now through sheer terror. It's something else that I'm sitting here able to make a live stream right now. So for all intents and purposes, my life's done with. And if my life's done with, I'm either going to die, wake up in my real body, whenever that was, wherever that was, however that was, or we're about to enter pure bliss. This game's ended. 2,000 years ago is pure bliss as well, really. But if I go back to my body when I'm 4, chances are we're not about to enter pure bliss. Pure bliss is on the cards eventually. I've got to live through 31 years, 32 years, however many years, to get myself to this point where I'm going to enter it again. And that's a lot of hurt. I don't really fancy doing it again. Let's just get on with pure bliss. That's what I'd prefer. And there lies the answer to the question. If I could wake up, where would I wake up to? And the answer is, well, my body when there's work still ahead of me. And the reason is because I have no control over it. I know that if you're in a lucid dream, to wake up, you just give a pure intent to wake up. I give the intent to wake up, and I'm still here. I don't know how to get myself out of this. I don't want to experience pure bliss going forward in this direction and then go back to my body when I was 4. And this is when it begins to open up. And find out it's not pure bliss, it'll be a killer. So the safest option is to say, let's go back to when I'm 4. This world is too painful. This life is too much. I'll take the easy option, the safe option, and that is to choose sanity. I can't choose pure bliss happening right now. But if I could choose something within the extreme strange nature of the dynamics of where I find myself within a coma, and understanding what rules apply within a coma, what rules apply within my mental health in this world and life, you choose the safe and wise option. And that is not to get ahead of yourself with pure bliss. No, it's on the cards eventually, but there's a possibility of more suffering there. So chances are it's then. Chances are I'm going to go back to a time when I'm 4 and there's going to be a lot of pain still. So that's where I look to, because I'm in that place where my mind is split. I can't continue in this world. I don't believe this world to be true anymore. I'm not going to believe a thing. I'm not going to believe we're about to enter pure bliss in this world. This world has just become fictional. And really that's where I chose. Because when I came back, it was like, what the nature of the life, the fighting was with my mental health. You've won, you've lost, you've won, you've lost. And I had to choose in the end. Well, I choose to win, so it can be over with. And that's what I've done. I've chosen to win, so it can be over with. I choose to go back to when I'm 4, because within pure bliss, there's wisdom, and within wisdom, you can still have pain within pure bliss. And sanity is what takes us to pure bliss. We get to pure bliss with our sane mind. That's what enlightenment is. It's a removal of all the insanities, all the trauma. And right now, within the dynamics of the confines of where I find myself, and I'm looking at a way to apply my energy to wake up, I'm looking at the age of 4 as the most likely time, most likely place where this is taking place. I don't know if that makes sense, because here I can't take another second. I can't focus on this being real. And what I'm looking at is that we're about to enter the Aquarian age. We're all about to throw up. I can't cling to that dream. Not when I could go back to being 4 and have it to do it all over again. That feels like the most grounded option. That feels like the most sane option. So that's where I'm really looking at. What I began to realize is death can happen on different levels in different ways. And as I said, I've looked when I was 16, I looked when I was 19, and 19 again, and then 20, and then 22, and then 24 2 times. And then when I went through my suicide attempts, when I've had accidents, and I began to see the nature of time. And understanding the very little I know of the Egyptian book of the dead. There was when I was working at a centre in London when I was around 24, we had an Egyptologist come over, Carmen Baker, I believe her name is. She's made a movie on the Egypt Code. And she basically says when you die, you don't really die. What happens is it's almost like nothing happens and you just get up and you carry on. And that's been pretty much all my life, each of those times since I was about 13, 16, 19, 19, 20, when I could have died. I just get up and I carry on. And then you sort of realize that, well, if you just get up and carry on, one of 2 things is happening. One is that you're already dead to begin with. That wasn't the time. And because you're dead, you can't die again. As I said, I've had failed suicide attempts when I know for myself I should have died. Or passed out at the very least, and I didn't. There were supernatural occurrences that took place then. So it looks like whatever time it was before. Or what happens is you enter a death and you live your life thereafter. As we said, you just get up and you carry on. And then you die again. And you get up and you carry on. And then you die again and you get up and you carry on. Until life takes your life away from you when you just can't move and you're lying there on your deathbed. But what that really depicts is what is the true nature of time? What is the true lineage? Because that's what counts when you're in a coma, when you're lost in a dream. Finding out the truth, the most real, most grounded point that you can locate as a reality. And that's what I was trying to do. And it kept being like, well, this is the true time, and I die and I go this way. This is the true time again, and I die and I go this way. I die again and I go this way. Because the truth is I'm dead in each of those times. It's like going back to the age of 4. What happens if I really did die then? My parents would have been mourning. They would have had their son that would have just died, and everything else that goes with it. And then the same again when I was 13. The same again when I was 16. The same again when I was 19. Blah, 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 so on and so forth. And then you realize what's taking place, because to my understanding, we're when we die, we essentially take homage within a god. So for me, my uncle would have been a god. He would have been my guide through the afterlife. When you take homage within somebody else, you're essentially contained within their consciousness. So it's like look at us as a world. One person dies. The person that holds the energy, so to my understanding, the person holds the energy for the planet. When you die, you get given a chance. That's it. You get given a chance. Right? How is this relevant? I'm trying to remember. You're gonna have to bear with me. I've got to recap. So you enter the afterlife. In that afterlife, you're in a place where time is infinite. The split second when you were meant to have died is absolutely infinite. It could last forever. A split second in reality is infinite. Time doesn't exist on that level because it's infinite, but it's time. It's contained, and we reference it as time. That's why we say it doesn't exist, because in each moment we can create an infinite amount of time, an infinite bubble of time. And from our perspective, looking at it, it doesn't exist. How can a split second have an infinite amount of time in it, and then 2 seconds later the same thing? It's not possible. So therefore time just doesn't exist. But the basic understanding of time is that time is linear to your reality. And what kills you is always somebody else. That's it. So I think in terms of my understanding of reincarnation, and I haven't separated them. So it's either the energy body or the emotional body, one or the other. Something in our life always kills us. It always leads us to our deathbed. And it will always have the primary cause of death. A lot of people have the coronavirus put on their death certificate. Otherwise, it's cancer, it's a heart attack, it's this, it's that, it's the other. But if we look at it in terms of energy, what led to that heart attack the most? What was the biggest culprit? Was it the final blow? Was it the final disease, which was the coronavirus? Or like in the case of my recent, of my grandfather who recently passed away, was it the fact that he smoked? And I was thinking about it earlier today. My grandfather smoked. Smoking is meant to cause cancer. Cancer is meant to cause death. And the finality is it was probably the cancer that played a big, well, I say the cancer. He didn't have cancer, but the harm of smoking that took its impact on him. And in the end, he only needed the coronavirus to send him over the edge. Or, if you look at it another way, should my grandfather have passed away many years ago with the death of his wife, his beloved wife, the death of his daughter, the losing his own home and having to rehome himself within his other daughter, my auntie, and really having life taken away from him slowly, but holding it strong in terms of character and humility to life. And his only pleasure in this world was really to smoke a pipe. He was a pipe smoker. If that gave him the strength to overcome all of those other problems, it's arguable if smoking extended his life as much as in the reality where it extended his life. It was also the very thing that killed him. My grandfather was a very calm man, would hardly ever get worked up or annoyed. And he was always, anybody that knew him would always picture him with his pipe. That was his thing, that was what kept him calm. So it depends how you look at it, really. And nobody really sees energy that clearly. But it's to see what was the actual cause of death. That is what's fundamentally important to my understanding, because if we can allocate and be clear the understanding of the interplay of energy and consciousness and polarization within a shared home, planet Earth, of 8 billion people, understanding the laws of all of that and the understanding of the butterfly effect, which is important. Butterfly flaps its wings on one continent. And the ripple effect that it has on energy, that single flap, slowly ripples itself out around the planet. By the time it gets to another continent, that flap is the tipping point of what's needed to create a typhoon or a tsunami or whatever else. Without that flap, nature would have held control. And that's how to see energy. If we see energy like that, and we understand there's a primary cause of death from a greater perception of awareness, then we can allocate a soul being, a soul person responsible essentially for the murder of another individual, consciously or unconsciously. One person on one side of the planet takes a sip of their coffee. 2 years later, somebody else drops dead. I've just killed a person. I'm responsible. But all I've done is drink my coffee, and no one's ever going to say, oh, don't drink your coffee, don't do this, don't do that. It's just life, where it's the nature of nature. And we all accept that, because you can't quibble at that level. And for that reason, somebody is always a murderer. Third degree or whatever else, sometimes it's first degree, sometimes it's half intentional, with some of the big corporations, the decisions they make, it's like, oh, smoking kills, let's put a ton full of harmful chemicals in it to make it even healthier, yeah? Those decisions could cause and be responsible for millions of deaths, or they could be responsible for one, or decisions like that could have no impact at all. When you start to understand that reincarnation happens like that, the soul reincarnates and emotions and energy reincarnate in a different way, it's because that person that is responsible ultimately for the murder, they take the energy of that person. They take that person's emotions or energy, one or the other. I don't know. I haven't had the time to delve into it enough. And when you begin to look at it like that, it's a case of rewind to when I was 4 and my uncle put me in that place where he killed me. He took me to the point of death. He killed me. He's responsible. But if we're talking about spiritual beings with the appropriate spiritual awareness, he could resist taking my energy. He could resist taking that responsibility with the right awareness. And for that reason, I'm kept alive by a miracle. And then I experienced the same thing when I'm 13. I should have died when I'm 13, for instance. Who's responsible for my death if it was when I was 13? Is it my uncle who kept me alive when I was 4, when I should have died? Or is it that some other reason, someone else resisted taking my life when I was 13? I know that might not be making too much sense. It might be a bit confusing, but it's like I could be locked into my uncle when I was 4, because of what we've just discussed. And that could make me immortal until my uncle decides, all right, he's become too arrogant, I'm going to kill him. Or is it a case of, I really did die when I was 4, and I woke up within the afterlife and just got up and carried on. And it happened again when I was 13, and I got up and I carried on. 16, got up and carried on. Because death is infinite as well. You just keep going and going and going. I'm trying to remember how I saw time greater than spirit. Because if I can relate to you that, what you can begin to see is that within a death, my uncle did that arguably intentionally. If it was a spiritual practice, he might have made a mistake, and he might have been spiritually aware, and he might have been responsible, held that responsibility going forward. And what I realized was that either way, whatever way you find yourself in that place where you've died and you've been kept alive, when someone else should have just taken your energy, what is given to you is a chance. Because, how can I put it? Rewind. Let's look at ourselves as a collective planet, and there being a God for the planet, or put it another way, the person that's collected the most emotional bodies or energy bodies in terms of being responsible for murder. And that person that's got that most emotional bodies or most energy bodies is essentially the strongest person on the planet on that level. And in that sense, there are, intensive purposes, a God of sorts. And whoever was finally responsible for your final death, ultimately all roads lead to Rome. And really and truly, the person that's really always going to be responsible for your death is the one person on the planet that's top of the pyramid. It's not like a horrible thing like they're the devil, but it is almost like understanding the afterlife without the perception of heaven and hell. The afterlife is a process. For instance, Jesus, he's created Christianity as a result of his life, as a result of his actions and words. Whether he intended it to ever look like this or not, he's been given the honor. How many billion or more than a billion people are Christian on the planet? In and around that figure die each year. They're christened, they go to church at some point in their life, they wear a cross, they might have a priest that does the final burial in Jesus' honor. Jesus, for all intensive purposes, all of a sudden looks a lot like the devil or Hades, because people go to the underworld and Hades is the god. You're resting in but you're also resting in Hades, or the devil has connotations about burning and suffering, but you see what I might be getting at. So the person that's responsible for the most deaths, most holding the most emotional or energetic reincarnations, is a god. They don't have to be a bad person. It's just the way of nature. And well, that's where it gets a bit tricky, because what's led to them being a god is time from the past. Not time of the future, but time of the past. Our collective, the way we've come together, that are right now in the present moment. And within that, there's always the question, well, we don't really know when we first died. If you're meant to be able to die and just get up and carry on, we don't know for certain which is reality. As I said, this reality has become spiritual for me, and in terms of what we're sold as being grounded, it has no worth. What has worth is that this is as spiritual as anything, and within spirituality, infinite possibilities happen, can happen, and do happen all the time. And this world is spiritual. So you have an accident at the point where you should die. You should go to that God that's responsible, the Hades or whatever you want to call him. There's the awareness of the dynamics of nature and the game that's played. And essentially, I can't remember for the life of me right now, but the only thing that ever gets brought into question is time. With enough time, would you heal? With enough time, is there a possibility for you not to die? I can't remember. That's the kicker right now. I can't remember how time relates, but that's essentially the crux of it. There's a little bridge there that it just won't come to me, but time is greater than spirit. And what's happening is, when you die, you're resting in another spirit. That spirit is saying, well, it's impartial and it's innocent. It might as well be Jesus in the body of Hades, the master of love in the image of a devil, well, the god of the underworld. And in that place of unconditional love, pure innocence that Jesus is meant to have been, the master of love, he's aware that time supersedes him. And for that reason, he gives everyone a chance with time. So this is where the concept of the afterlife becomes a reality. I had that accident when I was 4. Now, I might not have gone to my uncle. I might have gone to the God that governs the energy for the planet in terms of reincarnation, who holds those most energies. Because it always goes back to him or her in the end. And because they know that time supersedes them, they always give you a chance of time. And within their own energy field, essentially what happens is you go into a dream state. The life that you had gets put on hold, and a separate life on another dimension within the same energy is opened. And you continue that life with the same dynamics and foundations that were there, like the primordial energies at the moment you died. And they say to you, right, you're dead. That was the original trauma. That's all the traumas you can pick up thereafter. Can you ever heal yourself from that original trauma? And you're given a chance to step by step by step live your life, look at the world, learn, grow, become a good person, become a bad person, but you grow and you do your best. We all do, whether we know it or not. And slowly we gain a picture of the world. And if we're disconnected from the rest of society enough, like I am, we're able to see the world for what it is from the perspective of our past. But as soon as we start to get too close to other people, too connected within this way of life, within that way of life, what I understand that happens is like you lose your, it's not your identity, but that perception of reality that you've made. It's like with socializing your friends. When you meet a friend that you know, you're relaxed around them. You're at ease with them because you know them. You don't necessarily carry all that baggage with your family that you have into your relationship with your friend. So what we end up doing is we become schizophrenic. And the irony is I'm schizophrenic, but I'm more whole. But that's only the perception of everybody else looking at me. Whereas I'm looking at life. And nobody can see what I'm seeing the way I'm seeing life. And to me, it just looks more grounded than what most people must understand. And I'm building just an innocent perception of reality. If I start to live with society, that becomes at risk. And what we're talking about is that is contained within the energy of somebody else. And what we need to do is grow to such an extent when we have that near-death experience by ourselves to grow a concrete picture of the world enough so that what happens is we find ourselves in the center. And then we become a separate ball, an energetic bubble within the energy field of somebody else. And then one of two things happens. We either go back to our real body, happened, you're forgiven, or this reality carries on. And that energy separates from the Grand Master. And in this place, you get to live. And with the appropriate awareness, I guess, that's what you must have to gain to break free. It's like what I'm talking about, the awareness of death, the awareness of nature, the nature of nature, where it's about death and killing on an innocent level. So that when you leave them, you're cast iron guaranteed to near enough be immortal for the rest of your life. We're talking about Hades now. We essentially have to summon the energy through innocence, just looking at the fucking world and not getting sucked into whatever gets put on your plate. to justify that time is greater than spirit. Because with time, everything can be healed. And with time, the body wants to reincarnate. That Hades can only hold the soul for so long before it wants to go back. But what we're talking about now is Hades breaking free of that trap of Hades forever. What we're talking about now is going one step further and saying, hey, Mr. Hey, Mr. H. You know, the game you're playing, that only relates to when we believe we're spirit. If we believe we're infinite, then why are you playing God? You don't have a right. And it's as simple as that. That final statement is what gets us out of being trapped in the underworld. Because Hades will turn around and say, yeah, you're right. Prove it. And then you have to walk your talk. So if we can live by that last statement, we can essentially break free of Hades. We can essentially break free of the trap. And we can become immortal again, which we've forgotten as a species. And it's a killer. You'll have to either trust this insane, mad person and everything I've expressed to realize that from what I understood, time is greater than spirit. And for that reason, within whatever game is being played, reincarnation, afterlife, coma, near-death experience, dream state, so on and so forth, the place that we end up within all of those places is another soul. But that soul has love at the basis and awareness of everything. And they're aware time supersedes them. And they're saying, well, look, from my understanding of karma or whatever else whatever way that individual sees the world, I've killed you. You are my responsibility now. I have to look after you. If you can see that and prove that, not my responsibility then. You're something else. I let you go. And that's the crux. And really, whatever leads into those questions, you begin to, well, what I saw last night was like time split. Time was like, I could be here. I could be when I was 4. I could be 2,000 years ago. And it's all the same thing. Nothing really matters. What I know is that I'm in a coma or a dream, blah, blah, blah. What I know is that this world, from what the world is presented to us as the world, has no foundations, no grounding. What I know is that where there's grounding in this world is in spirituality. And the level that I'm talking about spirituality existing is that anything is possible in an instant. And for that reason, what we're talking about is what is the very nature of reality, what is real. I say, live your life from your past, look at the world, see the world, know the world. Ask the question, and then see your life through that question, and walk yourself home to immortality and eternal freedom. I'll see you there, either now, when I was 4, 2,000 years ago, maybe in the future, maybe in a different dimension, but I'll see you there.